Lesson 2-4, solving equations with the variable on each side. This is day 1 of a 3-day lesson on 2-4. Essential question. What is the first step to solving an equation with variables on each side? So the difference between this lesson and 2-2 and 2-3 is we're going to have 2 variables in every problem rather than just one. But our goal in every problem is still going to be to solve for that variable. On each problem, we're going to take 2 steps to solving. The first one is to get the variables on one side. So you'll see in a moment that we're going to have a variable on the left-hand side of our equal sign and on the right-hand side. So our first step is to get them on one side. After we've done that, we continue solving until that variable is by itself. Our first example is 8 plus 5x equals 7x minus 2. Just like in all the problems in the rest of chapter 2, we're going to draw train tracks first, which will help us keep our problem organized. Now, if you look back at our steps from a moment ago, it says get the variables on one side. So first of all, I'm going to identify my variables. I have 5x and I have 7x. The way you get variables on the same side is by adding and subtracting. It's always adding and subtracting. I know the 5x and the 7x, that shows us multiplication, so you'd think the opposite is dividing, but to move something from one side to the other, you have to add or subtract. There's going to be 2 possibilities on every problem that we could do. One possibility for this one is since 5x is positive, I could subtract it on both sides. Or since the 7x is also positive, I could subtract 7x on both sides. Either one will work and will get you the same answer in the end. I always like to avoid negatives if possible, so the way to avoid negatives would be subtracting 5x on both sides. Now I know that 5x and negative 5x make 0. And the x goes away as well, because if you have 5 x's and you take away 5 x's, you're left with nothing. So you don't want to have that x there, because that would mean that it's 1. When we don't get 1, we end up with 0. So I'll bring down the 8. 7x minus 5x is 2x. And then I bring down the minus 2. Now we have a problem that you should be familiar with from 2-3. Couple and third wheel. 2x is our couple, so that means the minus 2 or negative 2 is our third wheel. So the opposite of minus 2 is plus 2. I do that to both sides. Negative 2 and 2 make 0, so I x those out. Bring down the 2x. 8 plus 2 is 10. Now I'm left with just my couple, so I'm going to break up my couple. The opposite of 2 times x is dividing, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2. 2 over 2 makes 1, so I'm just going to cross those off and write x. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And that is my answer. Next one, 9x minus 6 equals 3x plus 7. So I'll draw my train tracks as my first step again. Both of my variables, 9x and 3x, I'm going to circle. Now remember, there's 2 possibilities for this first step. Since 9x is positive, I could subtract it on both sides. Or since 3x is positive, I could also subtract that on both sides. The one that's going to keep my number positive is subtracting 3, so I'm going to do that. But remember, you could subtract 9x from both sides and you should get the same answer. 9x minus 3x gives me 6x. Bring down the minus 6 equals 3 and 3 make 0, so I'll x those out and I'll bring down the 7. Now we have our couple and third wheel problem. Our couple is 6x. So get rid of the third wheel first, add 6 to both sides. Negative 6 and 6 make 0. Bring down the 6x. 7 plus 6 is 13. Divide both sides by 6. And you're going to notice that we're going to get a fraction on this one. 13 divided by 6 does not give us a nice number, so we'll just leave it as 13 over 6. Negative 3x minus 1 equals 5x plus 7. Train tracks. This time my couples are negative 3x and 5x, my variables that I'm going to circle. My two options for this problem is to add 3x on both sides or subtract 5x on both sides. The one that's going to keep my number positive is adding 3x. Remember, we're adding because of that negative sign in front of the 3. We're always doing the opposite. Negative 3 and 3 make 0. Bring down my negative 1. 5 and 3 make 8. Plus 7. My couple is 8x. So I subtract 7 on both sides, my third wheel. Those make 0. Negative 1 and negative 7. Here's a couple ways to think of this. I always say if they're both negative, add them together and put a negative sign in front. Or you could think that a negative and a bigger, and adding together a negative and a negative make a bigger negative, so negative 8. Break up our couple by dividing by 8. Negative 8 divided by 8 is negative 1 because a negative divided by a positive makes a negative. Two x equals 8x minus 30. Train tracks. This one looks a little bit different than the last three because it's missing that extra number on the left-hand side. We're still going to take the same steps to solve. It doesn't matter that there isn't that other number there. So I'm going to locate both of my variables, 2x and 8x. Since 2x is positive, I could subtract it on both sides. Since 8x is also positive, I could subtract it on both sides. I'm going to subtract the 2x from both sides. Now 2x minus 2x gives me 0, which is okay. We can have a 0 in our problem. 8x minus 2x is 6x minus 30. 6x is my couple, so I'm going to get rid of my third wheel first, so add 30, add 30. These make 0. 6x equals 30. Break up my couple by dividing by 6, dividing by 6. So I'm left with x equals 5. Negative 3x plus 4 equals negative 5x. Train tracks. My two options for this problem would be adding 3x or adding 5x since they're both negative. I'm going to add 5x to both sides because then that will keep things positive. Negative 3x plus 5x is 2x. Bring down the plus 4. Negative 5x and 5x make 0. 2x is my couple. So the opposite of plus 4 would be minus 4 on both sides. These make 0. Bring down my 2x. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. Divide both sides by 2 to break up my couple. And I'm left with x equals negative 2. Remember, a negative divided by a positive makes a negative. Summary. The first step to solving an equation with variables on each side is, and the homework assignment for this lesson is page 100, numbers 1, 10 through 13, and 33 through 35.